Most businesses and law firms today are using Microsoft 365 more specifically. And a lot of people are just scratching the surface because they don't realize that this robust solution at your fingertips is capable of doing much more than what you ever dreamed. In fact, you have an entire case management system just waiting for you to build it, to create it, to modify it, to scale it. And I find that a lot of people's fear of Microsoft 365 is rooted in the unknown. You don't know what you don't know. And it takes you opening up that box and exploring that solution to determine what can work for you. So, I want to invite you to watch this video. I presented last week in a law firm community. It is the best in class law firm legal community hosted by Gary Allen of Lane Law. We held a live Microsoft 365 Q&A for about an hour, and we invited a whole bunch of participants to ask those questions. The founder of Lane Law even offered a $100 Amazon gift card to anybody who could stump me on a case management process in Microsoft 365. Spoiler alert, they couldn't. No one stumped me, and so I'm glad Lean Law didn't have to pay anything out. Thank you so much for watching this video today, and hopefully we can catch up at the end.
That is, could you just give us like a 5-year-old's introduction to SharePoint so we can make sure we have a
Yes.
common baseline?
Yeah, think of a SharePoint site like a website. But not as complicated, clearly. But if you want to create an intuitive system, then you need a bridge to bring together all of your Microsoft 365 apps because they run independently of one another. But that bridge is SharePoint, and that SharePoint will provide a single collaborative space for a case to centralize client resources, to centralize an intranet resources and things like that. But all case management systems rely on two things: your data and a tagging solution. And when you create a SharePoint site, you get this email address allocated to it. You don't pay additional for it, but you can use it as that tagging feature. And so having this mechanism of centralizing case information on a per matter basis with SharePoint that I can access across all of my devices at any time is incredibly appealing. And I am very, very much a firm believer of use what you have.
Hmm.
And so SharePoint is a great thing that you have. We all have it as part of a business solution in Microsoft 365.
So it's just a place I can go to see everything about my case, depending on,
Exactly.
right. Okay. And I could have like a SharePoint site for every case so that things
Yes.
don't get all messy. Or if I have a small practice, I could have a single SharePoint site.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's the beauty. I mean, I have a criminal defense firm in Chicago Heights that I've done work for that uses it in a jurisdiction sort of way.
Mm.
And has a SharePoint site for each jurisdiction that they practice in. I use it per case, per matter. I have some people use it in a very sort of category way. These are all of my this type of cases. These are all of my that
Ah,
type of cases. And that's the beauty. You get to create a system that works for you. You're not constrained to this box that was given to you and you are working in the confines of that. You get to build
right.
your own house. But what we need are better paths to that resistance, and because there's so much to think about when building a house. Like outlets. Nobody thinks about outlets beforehand when they're designing their house, but they're necessary. They're part of the
You
configuration
do
of
if you have
everything.
an architect. Just
Yes. It brings it into that environment, connects it to that SharePoint, but everything is in Outlook where it natively goes anyway. Your emails come into Outlook, but when you tie them to a SharePoint site, which is also called a group, and that is what that verbiage is in your Outlook. Look for that term groups. And so it is a dedicated space for all those email communications. And I don't know about you, but it feels like a million communicate email communications a day. So having a better way of digitally organizing that information in its native environment is very appealing. But if you think about the reason why Historically, we used to convert communications to PDF and save them to somewhere on our network. It was for access. And that foundational need still exists within that dedicated email address and in that dedicated library and Outlook for that group and all those communications. That still exists, but we're not having to go that extra step of converting. There's no need. When it is on a per case level for me, if the type of cases that I handle are catastrophic injury, and there's a lot of volume that goes through there and they last for years. So I
Mhm.
do have a lot of bells and whistles in my typical SharePoint site, but it was about bringing together the foundational needs that I need at a moment's notice. And what I need at a moment's notice is information about my case. That's certainly the case name, case number, venue, judge, and room. But what if it's not a case in litigation yet? Maybe I need up there a date of death, a date of loss, or an important note like never call this client before 10 a.m. I can do that because it's my environment to mold as I want to. Bringing together those case resources, that court docket, that e-filing portal, often we're
Hmm.
Googling those things, especially if we're away from our office and we're not at that desktop computer with those bookmarks. Get there faster. That's all I'm trying to do, and you're probably trying to do as well. Case calendar is handled by Outlook, an application already available under Microsoft 365. And I'm always syncing with this calendar in Outlook. I can view this calendar here in SharePoint, in Outlook calendar, and as well as in Teams. And Microsoft Teams is a big application that a lot of people use. Centralizing e-distribution list information. I have a client with a case that has 8 different defendants. All defendants have their own attorneys. All attorneys have at least 3 people they need me to CC in their office. Give your paralegals a more efficient way of getting to those emails, copy paste into a to message, and get there faster. I use Microsoft List as a means of centralizing case contacts, linking those to Matter sites using Power Automate. And case task and task delegation is handled by Microsoft Planner, connected here in the SharePoint environment, available through SharePoint, Planner, and Teams. But Microsoft Planner is great for task delegation and also a wonderful collaboration tool to work in tandem with the attorneys that I work with.
Hmm.
And
So,
and the document library
yeah,
is
there we go.
powered by OneDrive. And this document library can sync to your File Explorer for PC users and Finder for Mac. That's amazing. I don't want to wait for a web page to load. I need a high level of access from my desktop computer. And so through this mechanism, you get that. But another additional bonus feature with this document library is that when you save documents into SharePoint document library powered by OneDrive, it immediately goes through OCR for text recognition. Microsoft is categorizing your documents for HIPAA sensitivities and data loss prevention policies.
Hmm.
Wildly important when we're dealing with major security issues when on the web, when in the cloud. But syncing this library kept a lot of us in our creature of habit moments. That's where we're used to navigating through our files. And so that's, that creature of habit moment that I like to keep you in. But I'm a trial paralegal. And so I have created a virtual war room space, which I start 3 months out at least from trial with a countdown timer. So we're always aware that seconds and minutes are literally passing us by.
That's kind of scary.
It is, but a lot of people don't realize these functions exist within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. And so for me, it's about empowering you as a user, showing you what's available, what you don't know, what the possibilities are. Get your wheels turning so that you can start thinking about creating this system that works for you, that you're already paying for.
Can we take a
Mm.
quick look at the email tab?
We certainly can.
Just so, yeah, I'm curious.
So this is a
Okay.
dedicated email for that particular matter that all of the members of this matter have access to, but it makes it really easy to also save files to your document library, and it knows exactly what document library to save it to because it's part of this dedicated space. My clients dump on me. They send me 10 emails using Gmail with 6 attachments
So,
apiece.
so
Yeah.
show me how you save that attachment, because that's
So
been the
actually,
bane of my
you
life, was the bane of my life in much of my practice. So,
right, I know. I've already clicked save to group library here. There's actually
oh,
a
it's
button
okay.
right
It's
here
already
that will say
saved. Yeah.
saved to group library. And so
Hmm.
it doesn't matter if it's 2 attachments or 50 attachments. All of those at once get saved to the dedicated group library, and nobody else on my team can come back in here and redo what I've already done. Everybody on my team is also going to see saved to group library. And so we're not overlapping in what each other is doing. We're all sharing the same information. And you
Hmm.
could even see your files directly through Outlook. A lot of people don't even realize they can do that. You don't have to leave Outlook to see what you saved. There's an email attachments folder that will get automatically put in your document library the very first time you save from that dedicated space. And so
Hmm.
from here, you could right click, rename, conform to your naming convention, and move it to whatever folder you need to. Your filing is done. But it's really about tying together the foundational needs. And then
Right.
once you're rooted there, scale from it and start to automate workflows.
What are the indexes?
Yes, so you'll notice that's what I was going to go into next. You'll notice
Okay.
that some of these folders are colored. That color coding signifies to my people that it's tied to automation, and my automation is indexing. Indexing
Hmm.
is pretty important to my role as a paralegal. There's a lot of volume that comes into my case. Metadata is a big word, but it's up to interpretation depending on who you talk to. But when things get saved in my defendant document production folder here, which this is just a demo area, those things get indexed into a Microsoft list. Those two words I sort of use as synonymously. An index is powered by Microsoft List, and I have a document production index list. It's not fully filled out or anything, but what my automation does is it takes the file name and it puts it in that document column. And then it takes the hyperlink directly back to that document and puts it
Mm.
in the link to document column. I'm going to come in here and expand upon the information. Who did I get it from? Where did I get it? When did I get it? What's the Bates range? What is it responsive to? And categorizing those documents so that I can filter by those things later on, narrow the scope of what I need to see, find the needle in a haystack for the attorney, pull and mark it as an exhibit should I need to. But I'm
Okay.
getting there faster using
Mhm.
Microsoft lists.
Mhm.
So I assume this SharePoint site doesn't set itself up, that you've got to make some decisions about what you want in here. How does that work?
You do. And I had a master class a while back that I taught people how to do this DIY, and a lot of people came back and says, "Misty, we're not Rachel Ray making things in under half an hour, and we need you to automate it for us." And so that's what Arrow 365 did. And if anybody wants to look at Arrow 365 on my website, you're welcome to. But the dream for every legal professional is to own
Yeah.
our data and to stop
Yeah.
leasing it from someone else. But I understand that your roadmap is a little hard in SharePoint, and what Microsoft gives us out of the gate, for lack of terminology, they missed the bar. They didn't really meet those legal professional needs. And so, what Arrow 365 does is automate that solution for you. In fact, this is my general litigation template, can be used pre and post litigation. But it is our featured template. We have 3 of them
So
in different uses, but it automates all of
so
this that
what
you see.
Arrow 365 does is it configures SharePoint sites, essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Configures the SharePoint sites, but they're yours. You own
Right.
them from day one. And that's the most important aspect of what we've been searching for. I mean, since Windows was born.
Right. So it's not like Arrow 365 is not like a case management software that
No.
lies on top of Microsoft. It's something that helps you build natively into M365 your case management the way you want it.
It enhances what you has. It doesn't
Yeah, yeah,
replace it. You don't need to
yeah.
reinvent the wheel. You need to innovate it. It's okay if I'm the nanny McPhee, here when you need me, gone when you don't, but I'm going to empower you along the way. And that's the difference. I'm bridging the gap because I speak your language and I understand what you go through on a day to day basis to move the needle forward. Through our templates, we're providing a better roadmap for as long as you need it. If in the event one day you don't need these templates anymore, that's okay. You still own everything within it from day one. But we hope that we've empowered you along the way. But my first operating system was DOS. My first spreadsheet program was Lotus 123. I went
Mhm.
kicking and screaming out of WordPerfect into Microsoft Word. So when I created the Microsoft 365 case management system with just DIYing it, which led into Arrow 365, it was about keeping me in those things that I knew best and navigation where I knew best. But learning a bit more about best practices when living in the cloud. I think one of the beauties of using Microsoft 365 as a contract paralegal is the fact that by October of this year, we're all going to be using it. We those perpetual licenses are going away, so we're going to be unified in what we're seeing. And you can even set up business to business connections through Microsoft Entra to allow for that authentication and access should you need to. But one of the ways that I use it, I don't do much contract paralegal work, but I have here and there. And the way I use it is I start with SharePoint and I create a SharePoint site for each one of my clients. And that document structure, the folder structure is powered by OneDrive. And when you create those SharePoint sites, you get that document library. And so you can organize that document library by project for that particular client. And then what else do you need in that environment? I need a calendar. So, I connect that calendar and that's Outlook. I need task management. And so I connect Microsoft Planner. And so foundationally, everything sort of starts with SharePoint and bridges out from that. I just published a framework for using SharePoint for cases and for clients, and how everything centralizes with SharePoint. And then you build upon that environment from there. But I use it just to manage the projects for my clients, but not necessarily to invite the client into the space. This is your
Okay.
space. This is
Yeah.
your business. And so protect that. You can still manage your projects and you can even still provide links to downloadables, but I wouldn't necessarily invite your client into your case management
Okay.
system.
Okay.
If you're using it for case management for your practice, my recommendation is to have the Microsoft 365 premium account. And the reason why is because it's your responsibility to protect the integrity of that data during electronic transmission. And that premium subscription comes with Microsoft Defender. And so that's going to give you that extra layer of security that you need to take that responsibility and protect the integrity of the data. But what Microsoft Defender is going to do is allow you to send encrypted emails in Outlook. So when you're sending out that document production, it's protected. It's only available for 30 days, it's password protected, and it's sent through encryption. And so you're taking that responsibility that's required.
Talk about your journey with Microsoft 365. How did you become an expert using it?
Yeah, I think after 16 years of working in so many different case management systems, I mean, you name it, I used it. I used ProLaw, I used Time Matters, I used My Case, I've used Clio. I've used so many different case management systems over the years. And I kept asking my IT people for help, help me do my job better. And they kept telling me that what I want didn't exist. And so after 16 years, I found out that my firm that I was working for at the time was paying $30,000 a year for our case management system that you can only look at inside the office. It was server based. And frankly, that's cutting into my salary, and and plus, if you have ever seen that cartoon of the attorney in the courtroom and the judge saying, "Counsel, what is your answer?" And the attorney saying, "Let me text my paralegal." I was that
Wow.
paralegal. And I know so many other paralegals that feel the same
Oh,
way.
yeah.
And so that meant that when the attorney was texting me and I wasn't right there to answer that question, then that question didn't get answered. And frankly, that's unacceptable to a judge. So I had to take a step back out of the box and say, foundationally, what do we need and what do we have? Because they weren't giving me a budget for anything else. And so I went to my IT and I said, "Hey, can I look at Microsoft 365 a little bit more?" And he said, "Here's a global admin license." I don't think he knew at all what he was doing in terms of that. But it really gave me this no holds bar way to explore what it was that we needed. I threw spaghetti against the wall and saw what stuck. I poured everything into OneNote notebook and figured out that when I did that, I couldn't open those things through my digital devices. And so I figured out really what worked. I baby stepped into every single solution. I opened the box. I
Mm,
dove in. And it took me 4.5 years to dive down that rabbit hole and pull something out of it.
Mm.
But the innovation that came out of it was unbelievable. I
mm,
created a video about it, put it on YouTube, and went viral, and a component of my business was born because I had no idea how many other people out there were struggling with the same issues that I was. And so since then, I sort of made it my mission to get out there and give the information back to the people. I've become Cleo's worst nightmare. And I'm trying to empower, paralegals and legal professionals to take a look at their foundational needs rooted in what they have and scale from there. And it's been a labor of love, I'll tell you what, but I've had the most amazing time having the opportunity to speak with legal professionals all over the world and sort of become this new strategist of case management, but in Microsoft 365. But that's not to say that's the only thing that I use. I still use Adobe. I still use other
mhm,
platforms as well. But my first question is, does it integrate with Microsoft 365? If it doesn't, I don't consider it whatsoever. And if it does integrate, where are those integrations occurring? Is it an integration that I'm going to see in my Outlook ribbon? Is this something that I'm going to see in Microsoft Teams? And can I automate a process through there? So I try to get people off the third party hamster wheel as much as I can, find those foundational needs in Microsoft 365. But what I want to do is give people those options that you have in Microsoft because there is no one way to do anything. There's multiple ways to do what you want to do. But what is that path of least resistance for you and your team? And to impress the fact that we have the ability to create a system that's not homework. When you create something that is homework for your people, you're not going to create buy-in. And I think taking it forward was a big part of that. It wasn't a retroactive system that I created. It was a going forward thing that we started doing. We knew that one day all of our cases were going to be in Microsoft
Mm.
365, but it eased the learning curve of my people and it created better buy in ultimately.
That's really important. You don't have to create 1,000 client files right from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Who's
don't.
going to do that? Review cases.
Microsoft is going to
Yeah.
stop you at 2 million SharePoint sites, and I haven't had a client get there yet.
mhm.
Yikes. Yeah.
I mean, at that
Yeah.
point, you got to start thinking about your exit strategy. I mean, every state has one in terms of our retention policies. After 7 years, man, it's gone.
Yeah, no kidding. If you've got 2 million of them going, it's either a really big law firm or you've got a really big data problem.
Right. Right. And I do have big law firms that are using Microsoft 365. And those sort of environments need a slightly different approach than what a smaller firm with 1 to 3 to 5 people have. When you have firms working in different time zones, but using the same Microsoft 365 subscription. That became an issue, so it was about creating a Power Automate where when you created SharePoint sites, it opened it in your time zone. But people don't exactly know that they have that ability to scale this environment to their direct needs. And that's where Power Automate lives, guys. Take a look at Power Automate. It's in your subscription. Click that waffle in the top left, also known as the app launcher. And look at Power Automate. There are thousands of templates there. Microsoft developers have already designed those automated workflows. You just have to make the connection. So I
Right.
think that Microsoft is a little bit of a, you have to go through it to get through it, but it doesn't have to be an unguided rabbit hole. That's why I named my company Arrow, literally here to guide you along the way. Huge, huge question. AI is scary. I still say please and thank you to it, anytime I interact with it. But Copilot just integrated with SharePoint. And it meant that we could create Copilot agents. And just to, bring that down a notch in technical terms, is it means that we can create virtual assistants within the SharePoint environment to help us look for data, analyze data. I've had attorneys ask Copilot to help them create a deposition outline. Did they
Mm,
revise it? Absolutely, but it gave them a really great starting point. And using AI to help us craft emails. I mean, I've used it to help tone down a snarky email that I originally wrote, and I was like, nope, can't send that.
nice.
Copilot, help me tone this down. Have it help you. We're just starting to look at AI and how it integrates into Microsoft 365. And so right now it's about setting boundaries for people. It's
Hmm.
about creating ethical rules and guidelines for your people. I've even started to create prompts for people. If you want to sort of help guide your people in using AI for your firm, then we need to look at those ethical responsibilities and have bigger conversations about that. This is such a big topic. Everybody really needs to be talking about it. It's only looking at your data. It's in, I find it far better to work with it over using ChatGPT. We obviously have really big restrictions there. And I think Copilot is going to absolutely change the way that we do business. I said over a year ago, these things are going to start becoming search engines. And so you can also
Yep.
think of it like a search engine for your Microsoft 365 ecosystem. But I mean, I remember growing up and I watched the Jetsons and what is the robot Rosie that you can talk to and gives you, I mean, I swear it's like our new Rosie.
Would she draft answers to interrogatories? I don't
I
know.
don't know. I don't know, but I bet you she could.
That's pretty amazing.
My job really for everyone is about teaching you what those possibilities are so that you have a better roadmap for exploring those features and designing what works for you. Somebody like Clio built an interface on top of Microsoft 365, but they take you out of it. Nobody wants to take you out of it. I don't want to take you out of it. I want to keep you in it and I want to
Yes.
teach you how to
Yes.
use it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's, I've used practice management and case management software for years, and it just those disconnects drove me crazy. And
Yeah.
we never got productivity increases out of it
And you
because
never
of,
got training.
right.
Like, that learning momentum didn't keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm a really big believer in, start with those industry standard, um, applications, M365 being at the top of the list for almost everybody. Maybe you've got QuickBooks for accounting and some, a tool like we make Lean Law for your billing.
right.
But that's really kind of the base of what you need. Maybe you need a CRM depending on your practice, but
I
you know,
created mine.
yeah,
Microsoft List, Power Automate, SharePoint. I mean,
yeah,
I created my own, so I didn't have to pay for a service like
exactly.
that.
And you're just going to have a lot more satisfactory result
Yeah.
and more customized, as you could see, more customized workflows and applications. So
Mhm.
I really think this is the wave of the future. So,
Even when I started interviewing people, I started asking questions about their knowledge of Microsoft 365.
mhm,
That became pretty important to my interviewing process. Our telephone, we use Teams VoIP, voice over IP. I pay so much less for Teams VoIP than I ever did for a landline, and I don't need a landline, and I can take my phone from my office anywhere because you have a Teams app on Android and
yeah,
on
yeah.
iOS. So blessing and curse, I can take it anywhere. But when I was on the beaches of St. Thomas working, I know they didn't hear those waves crashing behind me. They had no idea I was there. They thought I was right here in front of my computer talking to them.
Next
And that's
time, leave
okay.
your phone at home. It's
I know sometimes it's important to disconnect. But the possibilities are endless. And I think that's a little overwhelming for some to think
yeah,
about how they want to see
that's
and
the big
interact with their
thing is
data. And in my latest blog, there's a worksheet, a download worksheet with that one, because what I had to do was say, we're using Abacus to take notes in this way. What is there in Microsoft 365 that I can do the same thing with? And once I had replaced every single thing with another Microsoft 365 app, then I knew that it was time for our exit strategy. We had a path, an exit strategy path there. And so that could be all you need. Just
mhm.
jot it down, brain dump, and then start to strategize about that movement into Microsoft 365.
Let's talk about mistakes that you see people making when they implement M365, and how do you avoid them?
The first mistake I see people do is not starting with SharePoint, but starting with Teams.
Mm,
And you can have a SharePoint site without having a Teams channel, but you can't have a Teams channel without SharePoint running that in the background. SharePoint truly is the center of that ecosystem. And then when they start to create more folder or more channels, they're really just creating more folders inside that SharePoint document library that's running that space.
mm,
And so when they try to scale onto that, they find it hard, and it's because they started in Teams and not in SharePoint. And then the
that's a
other
great tip.
mistake that I see people do is with that document library in SharePoint and going several subfolders deep inside that document library without knowing that Microsoft has a 255 character limitation. So when
Mm,
you sync that document library to File Explorer, you run into that 255 character limitation. And so if you have long file names and then you have all these subfolders within, those file names, you're going to eat up that 255 character limitation really quickly. And so I tell people that you shouldn't go more than 3, possibly 4 subfolders deep. Um, and to think about the way that you're naming your files, because you're living in the cloud, every single one of those documents has a corresponding URL. URLs don't have spaces. And to make up for that space, the internet puts in a percent, a 2, and a 0. And so that's 3
mm.
characters to what should be just one, a single space. And so it is really best to conform to a naming convention. I have a 2-page document I share with everybody in my organization.
Hmm.
We know exactly how to save everything. It makes our search results better, but we know we're not going to exceed the 255 character limitation as well.
Okay. Those are
Mm.
some great tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get off on the wrong track, you can
Yeah.
get messy in a hurry.
It can
So
get
that's really
messy.
good.
And then there's
Yeah.
this big red X saying that there's sync issues with
Mm,
255 documents.
right,
That's a
right.
mess to clean up.
What are some of the lesser known features that you think law firms should be using, but they overlook?
Bookings. Microsoft Bookings is a really great way to book consultations with potential new clients. It
Mm,
connects directly with your calendar and it gives people a way to book time with you, for consultations, personal injury, bankruptcy, divorce, all sorts of ways. Um, and you can create a whole onboarding system sort of with bookings. You can automate emails leading up to the meeting. You can automate an email after the meeting asking how you did, asking for feedback,
wow.
asking for a
Mhm.
testimonial. And then Microsoft Forms. Often we're looking for ways of collecting discovery answers from clients, but we have to do it in a HIPAA compliant way. And if we're using Microsoft Forms, then we're protecting the transmission of that data. We're asking for that information in a HIPAA compliant way. We're giving our client the ability to answer those questions on any device, and we have the ability to ask them the question in the way that we know that they're going to understand
Yeah,
and
love it.
efficiently respond to it.
Yeah. So one last question. So how does my M365 handle document collaboration and version control, especially if your work teams are working on the same case?
Yes. So when you're working in the cloud and you open up documents through a shared OneDrive space, SharePoint being a for instance here, take your eye to the top left of your document and you should see a little switch there that says autosave, and that should be toggled on as long as the settings on your computer are correct. And so that means that it's auto saving each and every time, but
Mm,
it's also saving those different versions. And so in the very top area where you see the date and time that you created that document, there's a little icon located to the right of that. And when you click on that, you can click on version history. It will open up a read only document and show you every single version, who made those changes, and the date and time they made those changes. And you can
mm,
restore a version should you need to, which is really great because we're often using things as template. We'll pull a document or a pleading from another case and we're using it for another case. We just got to change those names, change some things in it. Don't
mm.
reinvent the wheel each time, right? But when you're working in the cloud and you start making those changes right away, then that's when you start to have to look at that version history. It's auto
Right.
saving. You didn't mean for it to. So I always tell people you need to customize your quick actions. You need to bring in that quick action in the top left that says save as. You need to save as, save it to the new area, and then start to change the document. And so that way you're not changing an original. But collaboration is far better in Microsoft 365 Word because now you can be working in a document simultaneously. If we think about the way that we used to access files through File Explorer through a server, it was a read only. You couldn't change it, you couldn't be in it. Now you can collaborate. I'm working on a trial right now for a case in San Diego, and they have their own paralegal, but simultaneously, we're working on that exhibit list together. It's like 60 pages long. And so we can both be working in it. We'll even see where each other is at in the document and we can comment to one another. So it's a far better collaborative platform, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's using OneDrive and stuff that's all native to
All native.
M365. Yes. Well, Misty, thank you so much. I
Mm.
learned a ton here today. I
Good.
hope everyone else did. Um,
Clearly, this is a subject that I can go on and on and on about. So, if I didn't answer your question today, please feel free to reach out to me so that I can get that answered. I think that if we are going to start building more sustainable law firms and businesses, then we need to root our processes, our foundation, our documents in a system that is going to be sustainable. Microsoft has been supporting businesses since 1975, and I guarantee you they are not going anywhere. But I understand your language. I understand what you go through on a day to day basis to move the needle forward. And I think that's where I bridge the gap in this industry. We've been expecting software developers to understand what we go through, and they simply don't. So, check out the description box below, fill out the Microsoft form, reach out to me about private training, check out Arrow 365, because regardless of the path to success, I am here to help. Thank you so much for watching today, and good luck to you and all that you do, because this crazy legal industry needs an innovator just like you. Have an amazing rest of your day, an awesome week ahead of you, and I will see you guys back in the next one.